The Nigerian government and the United Nations have joined forces to address the issue of food insecurity in the country. Well, the hope is that nationwide dialogues will bring solutions that ensure everyone has access to affordable and nutritious food. Arise correspondent Itoho Udofia has more.
In a country of over 200 million people, children and youth, who make up 55% of the population, are the most at risk of being food insecure. Nigeria is a country of young people, and that is why it's so important to listen to what they have to say. And surprisingly enough, they have a lot to offer about what needs to be done around the food insecurity crisis in the country.
Many people's lives are at stake, especially those who don't get access to this food.
Like in the program now, we are the ones who brought up the ideas that some of the solutions to the problems that fix the roads, advanced mechanization, to bring devices for farming. So we can actually give ideas.
Without food, we can't survive. It's one of the main three things we need to survive in the world of today. And if we don't have accurate food whenever we need it, it doesn't help the body. We need to grow strong, and without food we can't do that.
53% of deaths under age 5 is linked to malnutrition, and 4 in every 10 children are stunted, which means the average Nigerian does not have enough food or nutrients in their diet. Without this, you can't grow. Non-governmental agencies and government officials believe Nigeria can progress. The country grows a lot of food: maize, rice, wheat, millet, cassava. It's about how everyone uses the resources grown to help the whole.
The point of these dialogues is to effectively articulate feasible pathways to sustainable, resilient, and equitable food systems.
Making changes in our food systems are an opportunity to drive progress across all of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Food insecurity touches on every challenge the country faces: climate change, conflict and insecurity, rising food prices, COVID-19. With these issues, there's a need for us to go beyond talking about food security and instead talk about food transformation.
If we all commit to contributing our quota, we shall be in a position to harness the benefits of our abundant agricultural resources and make progress on the Sustainable Development Goals.
Food goes beyond what's on the plate. It's a much bigger discussion. Itoro Udafia, Arise News, Abuja.
Well, thank you, Toro, for that report. And now we're being joined by Unicef's Chief of Nutrition, Nemat Hajeebhoy. Nemat, thank you so much for being here with us tonight on the program. And of course, let's start with the fact that there were predictions even earlier in the year that Nigeria is actually going to battle food scarcity, especially in the northern part. I believe that the latest data says about 13 million people, especially in northern Nigeria, will suffer from malnutrition or even die from hunger if work is not being done. So far, so good. With all of these predictions, even from what came out of the meeting today, do you think the Nigerian government is doing enough to avert food scarcity?
So absolutely. And I think before we go into that, it's important to talk about what food insecurity means and what we mean by nutrition security. Okay. So food security means, do I have enough food to fill my stomach on a daily basis? And today, as we speak here on this, in this studio, 13 million Nigerians will be going to bed hungry. So they don't have enough food to fill their stomach. Nutrition security is, are we eating the right food for our growth and development, and particularly for children? And again, we know in Nigeria that only 1 out of every 5 children gets the kind of diet that they need to grow well. So that means most of our children, 4 out of 5 children, are not getting the diets they need. So it's not just the responsibility of the government, it's everybody's responsibility. And I think today's Food Systems Summit demonstrates the commitment of the government, of different stakeholders, academicians, policymakers and others, to transforming food systems in Nigeria.
All right. Let's bring in the young people, the ones hardest hit, as it were, by the crisis. How are they being included in the process to bring food systems transformation to the country?
Thank you for that question. Nigeria has a population of 200 million people, out of which 110 million are children under 18. So they represent about 50 to 55% of the population. In a lot of our conversations, we forget that children under 18 are such a big part of our country. We also forget that they are smart, they have a voice, and they have creative solutions. So today, when we met this morning with various stakeholders, we actually had young children coming and speaking to the policymakers, including His Excellency the Vice President, to share their views and thoughts. And while we were holding this meeting in Abuja, there were also simultaneous dialogues being held across the country. So we had about 7 different meetings happening across the country in Akure, in Port Harcourt, and other corners of the country, for children to raise their voice about what they think the future should look like, because they are our present and they are our future.
Absolutely.
It is also estimated actually that by 2050, our food needs are going to rise by as much as 50 to 70%. So what we do today is going to impact tomorrow, and children of today are going to be heavily impacted.
Because if you look at the way Nigeria's population is growing, it's not, the GDP of the country is not growing as fast as the population is. So this actually poses a huge threat. But let's really look at what are the major challenges really to food security, particularly here in Nigeria.
So I would say we could classify these in challenges and solutions into 3 main buckets. We have challenges that are around production and production of food. So these could be challenges such as the inputs you can bring to food, seeds, fertilizers, cropping patterns, etc. We have challenges around what we call processing and value chain. So how post-harvest loss, for example, we may be producing quite a bit of food, but we also waste a lot of food before it reaches our table. And the last piece is how do we utilize the food that reaches us? There's a lot of food waste. There could be food safety issues. So the challenges stem from production to processing to distribution and utilization. So we say you have challenges from the farm to the table all the way through.
So let me follow up on that question. Then, it's one thing to know that you have a problem. Another is to know how to go about solving the problem. So you have challenges now. So what are we doing? What are you doing with Nigeria in order to, overcome these challenges?
So I would say the Food System Summit Dialogue today, for example, represents one big way in which we can assist and work together to address these challenges. The solutions that we discussed today also fall into some of these brackets, and like how do we improve production? Are we talking about better fertilizers, seeds, processing units and plants, loans and financing, better data that we need, and better research that is needed to improve what what our needs will be, how do we need to go about it, and what infrastructure and processes do we need to put in place to solve this.
Okay. Looking at the fact that Nigeria, unfortunately, is the poverty capital of the world, and food inflation in the country is pushing towards 25%, that means the price of the everyday food is really, really expensive for the ordinary Nigerian. So how can everyday Nigerian really get involved really to avoid food scarcity and also make sure the children get the right nutrition that they need? Absolutely.
It's a very tough question to answer, but I think the best thing we can do as ordinary citizens is to really lean in. We heard today from children actually that farming and getting involved in the food sector is not seen as a great choice of profession by parents of today. And yet farmers form the backbone of what we do. You and I wouldn't be here having this conversation if we hadn't fed ourselves well through the day. So I think one of the things we can do is to encourage our own families and our future generations to look at food and food production as an important part of our own lives and our cycle. We could also look at our own homes and recognize how much we're wasting or not wasting and how we utilize our foods in our own homes. And then outside of our homes, it is how we engage with our policymakers, how we engage with our governors, commissioners, and others to share our voice and to provide solutions and to work with governments on these solutions.
What you said I can very much identify with. When I was in school, don't tell me about agriculture. I wouldn't go to the farm for anything, unlike my colleague who is not here, who loves agriculture. You know what I'm saying? So where I'm going to is actually like we talked about marijuana in America, to be able to go get a jab and all that. Is there any way you're encouraging the youths? Yes, incentivize them, yeah. Encouraging them much more than just speaking to be able to go far.
So, yes, I would say on part of UNICEF, we have a whole program around Generation Unlimited and Gen U and the youth. And it is looking at, what are career options? Where can you steer people? What opportunities can be provided to young people to look at the future and look at what I would call actually climate smart, sustainable employment and livelihood options for the future.
I like that.
All right.
Nemat Hajeebhoy, I would have to say thank you so much for joining us, and also thank you so much for all that you're doing for the Nigerian child to ensure that we get the right nutrition in the bellies of our babies. Thank you so much.
Thank you.